What's going on, my fellow web developers? My name is Tyler Potts, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look into the Vue router, and we're going to be basically adding some animation, some transitions to our pages. So we've got two pages here, the home and about, and we have a few different options I've created. So here we're going to have the fade option. So when we click, you can see the page change, but it doesn't just have that snap, it has a fade, which is, you know, it's its own thing. It's pretty awesome. And there you go, you've got a standard fade transition. It's not just the basic snap page. We now have this slide, and there you go, you can see this slide. You can see it slides to a different page with the content on. I also did a slide down, slightly different, kind of like a pull down and pull back up. And there you go, so it's kind of a nice little different fade in, fade out there. Now we can have grow in. Now this is one of my favorite ones. So you can see here, it just disappears and comes back. And then we have grow out, which is the same, but in reverse. It actually pops out at you and then pops back in. There you go. So there you go. You can see there's a bunch of different animations here, and you can go through all of them. I'm going to show you how to create every single one of these in this video using Vue free composition API and Vue router 4. So without further ado, let's get on with the rest of this video. Okay guys, if you're new around here, you won't know what's necessarily going on. We have opened up a folder inside our Visual Studio Code, just a blank folder. You can use any text editor, anything you want to do this. You also need a terminal. I'm going to use the one which is built into Visual Studio Code, and here we go. So let's just open up the terminal at the bottom here. Now the first thing we want to do, let's just clear this, and let's just run npm create vite at latest, and then we're going to do a dot. So what we're saying here is we're going to create a Vue template. So this way we've got to do double dash template Vue. So we're going to be using a Vue template with in the current directory. So we want to build it inside a tutorial and don't pull it in any folder, and that's what we want to do. So we're going to hit enter, and it's going to ask us for a package name. Oh no, it is not. It's just going to take the tutorial name. There we go. So now we've got that. Now we need to run a couple of things. We need to run npm install Vue router, and we can do at latest or Vue router at 4. I'm just going to do at latest. It's 4.4, I think, something like that. And that's going to install Vue router 4 us. It'll also install all our npm modules, so we don't actually have to run. Oh, I just accidentally hit npm instead. We don't actually have to run npm install because it will already be installed, as you can see, up to date. So what we want to do here is we now can run npm run def if we want to. And that is going to start a development server on 5174. So let's just up this to 4. And there you go. We've got this base thing here, the vite plus Vue template here. So now we've got that, let's just close this, and we need to do a few things. So we want to go in assets, delete the assets. We want to go components, delete the components. The style CSS, delete it. Go into main, remove the style reference there. Go into app and remove all of these for now. Let's just delete this, delete this whole thing here. Delete this whole bit here. Also delete everything within the style, and we're just going to remove the scoped from this first tag here. And there we go, we have absolutely nothing. So what do we want to do? We want to basically just add a div here, say div, and just have just say hello world for now. Just hello world, just like that. Now let's go back to our browser, and there you go. You can see we've got this super plain basic app here, website here, nothing on it. Which is absolutely fine. So what we want to do is we want to set up our Vue router first. So what we're going to do, in our source folder, create a new folder called router, and inside that router, or inside the router folder, we want to create an index.js file. Now we need to import. Let's just hide this bottom bar here. I'll zoom in one as well. So we want to import create router and create web history from Vue router. We then also want to say create a constant called root, and this is going to be each and every one of our roots. So the first one, the path, is the actual URL, which is going to be /. We're then going to have a name called home and a component. So we're going to have components. We want to do /Vue/home. And that's where our components are going to live. So we're going to have a home component, and we're going to have two routes. So we're going to have a second one called about. So you'll go to /about to get to this one. There you go. The next thing we want to do is say const router is equal to create a router. We're going to create a web history and also pass through the routes up here we've just created in here. We then just want to export default of router, and this is going to allow us to access this inside of our main.js. So let's close this, go back into our main, and let's just import router from, and then we can say router like that. We then need to actually use it inside of Vue, and to do that we just say after our create app we say .use router then .mount. So next up we need to create our actual route. So inside of our index here we've created a mention to these routes, but we don't actually have any components to go with them. So let's create these. Let's create a new folder inside of our source called views, and inside of here we're going to create home.vue and about.vue as well. So in home.vue we're going to create a template. We're just going to give it the main tag here, and then we can have a h1 in here that says home, a paragraph that's lorem 10, another paragraph that's lorem 25, a bit bigger. There you go. And let's just break this down, and there you go. That's the home page done for us. Let's copy this, paste this back in here. Let's change this to say about. Let's change this up so it looks different when we transfer. Let's say this will be 15, so it's slightly more. This one will do also 15, so just say lorem 15, and there you go. We've got two different sentences there, and there you go. We also want an image here, and we're going to use Pixum or Unsplash here. So if we just say https://pixum.photos / and then we give it dimensions. For this one I'm going to say 800 by 300, and we're just going to say placeholder inside of this here. So there you go, we've got our image. Let's go back to our app.vue now, and this isn't going to work still. We're going to have, you can see here, fail. Oh, there you go. So we're just going to have a plain thing, and the reason we're not seeing our home page or our view page, so if we go to / about, we're on the about page, but we're still saying this base template, and that is because this is essentially our base, and we need to import something called the router view. So what we're going to do is inside this diff, we're just going to break this down a couple to make it easier, and we're going to say router view. Now this can be a singular, a closed off tag like this. It doesn't need two tags. However, if you're doing transitions and router views, we're actually going to need to change this into we need to add a closing tag. So we need to add stuff inside of this. We also then need to use the slot, and this way we're going to be able to pull out our component here. So this is going to be all our fee slot data. This is going to be our component right there. We then want to pass through a transition. So before, in Vue 2, you used to just use transition wrapped around the Vue router. Now you need it wrapped in here with the component available. And here we're going to say component, and we're just going to say is, and this is where we can set our component. And for this, we're going to pass through the component we get from our fee slot. Alright, so that's that there. Let's just save that, go back here, and there you go. We can see we're finally on the about page, home page. Let's go back to the about, and there you go. You can see we get a random picture every single time. So let's just go back to home. And the issue here is we don't actually have any way of getting to our about page. So let's create a navigation. So above this, we're going to create a navigation, and we're just going to put in two router links. So I'm going to say router link, and we're going to say home. And then under this, we will add another router link. And this one will be about, and we need to just pass it in twos here. This is how we know which page we want it to take us to. So we're going to say router link to the about page, and we want this one to be just // which is our home route. And there you go. Let's go back. Now if we click about, you can see we transfer over to about, and we can go back home like that. There you go. But you can see when we're clicking it, there's no transition. Although we have the transition wrapped around our component, it's still not transitioning, and that's because we actually have to come up with the animations and the transitions ourselves. This is just a wrapper to help. So how do we get this to work? Well, let's start off with a simple fade animation so I can show you. So inside this transition, we can give it a name, And this name can be anything. We're going to give it a fade. You can even leave the name blank and use a fee instead. So it will basically give you a fee for your class instead of fade, but you'll understand in a second. We can then pass through a mode, and there's different modes. There's the default mode, there is the in out, and there is the out in. Now the one we're going to be using today is out in, but I'm going to leave it default now just so I can show you the difference in a moment. So let's have our fade here. And now again, this isn't going to do much. There's not much here. So let's just quickly add some styles to make this look right. Again, it won't do anything yet, but if we right click and inspect our page and we go to our elements, let's just bring this all the way down and look at this main class here. So you can see there's a class there, but there's no icon on it. When we swap pages, you can see something changes on this main tag, but because there is no timing for it, there you don't actually see much happen. It just flashes because the classes are actually changing, but they're changing really quick, and I'll show you more about that in a second. So in our style, let's start off by styling everything and removing the margin. Let's remove the padding and let's give it a box sizing of border box. We're then going to give it a font family of Montserrat and sans serif. And then under here, let's just give it some simple styling. Let's give the nav bar some styling. So we'll give it a display of flex. We'll set the item center. We'll justify the content center. And we will also just give it a bit of padding of 1 rem, just so it's there. There you go. So that should hopefully, there you go. It's now centered. It looks a lot better. Let's style the actual tags in there. So we need to target a nav A tag. And we're going to start off with a margin of 0.5 rem. We're going to add in some color of black just to style it up. Just say black, that'll do. And then we can give it a text decoration of none. Let's go back here, refresh, and there you go. We've got these basic things. They still work, although they don't look like links yet. Let's go here and let's say nav A, and this time let's just say on hover. So on hover, what we want to do is give it a new color, and we're going to say crimson. We're also going to give it a text decoration of underline. So there you go. You can see, oh, refresh. There you go. You can see it's now working and you can actually see the transition. Let's also add something. So now we're on the home page, but we can't tell we're on the home page. We can't tell we're on the about page other than the title. So let's highlight which one we're on using this link. Now to do that, we can actually come to this hover class and we can say nav A, and then we can get a link, a class. So if we inspect this here, you can see this one has the router link active and the router link exact active. So if I click about, you'll see that class will change and it will go onto our other A tag, our about page tag. And this basically just indicates what page is active. And if you look at this one, there's two different ones here. The router link active means it has about / about in its root. So we could go here and say like test as well. And you can see that still will be, oh, because this page doesn't exist, it doesn't show there. But if we did test, it would still show the router link active, just not the router link exact active. This will tell you if it's exactly the page we're on. So we want to get this link here. We want to copy this class here. Close that down. And then we can say dot that there. And there you go. So now if we go back and we refresh, you can see we're on the about page and it shows I don't have to hover it anymore. It's just always active, which is great. Let's also then just give our main a style. We're going to give it a padding of 1 rem. We'll give it a max width of like 768 pixels to bring it all to the center. Margin 0 auto again to bring it to center. And we want to do something called will change. Now the reason I'm doing this is this will give... we're basically telling it what we're going to be changing, so it will make it more performant when we use its transforms and transitions. This is just a nice thing. So we're going to be changing the transform and opacity. It will help with performance on your website if you add this. If you don't, it's not going to make much of a difference. And there you go. You can see this now looks a lot better. Look at that guy looking all cool. And there we go. Let's just start our H1 real quick, and we're just going to add some margin to this. We're going to say margin bottom 1.5. Rem. Same with our paragraph tags. We're just going to say margin bottom 1 rem. Margin bottom 1 rem. And we'll get our image. Image, and we'll just say its width is 100%. We'll make sure its max width never goes past 100%, and we'll give it a margin bottom of 1.5 rem. Save. There you go. That now looks better. If we go over here, you can see that image is now pushing it down there. And there you go. So there we go. That's styled up. Now let's get into the actual page transition. So we added this name of fade here. Now how can we actually make the pages fade? Well, what we want to do is we want to use classes. So we will have a class called fade enter from, which is where when you start the animation, this is where it will start at. And we also need to have fade leave to, and this is where it ends. So this is where the animation when you're leaving the page ends. So we want to set these to the same thing, opacity 0, which means it's going to start up at opacity 0. We then want to say fade enter active and fade leave active. And these are when it's currently transitioning. So when the transition is happening, we want this to be running. And here we're going to say 0.5 for now, and we'll say ease out. So let's go back here, let's refresh, and let's click this. So you can see it fades in, but the components are kind of being weird. They kind of stop there and they jump up, which isn't what we want. And this is the default behavior. So what it does is both the animations will run at the same time. However, we can change this by changing the mode of the transition. So if we say mode, we can actually set this to either in out, or we can have out in. And we're going to be using the out in for this tutorial. And what out in does, it means it will make sure the first one fades out and then the second one fades in. In out does the opposite. It will bring in the new component and then fade out the second one, which is actually a lot slower. And I don't know the use case for it in all honesty, but it's probably useful at some point. Out in is the one I want to use for this, because now if we refresh and we go to our home and about, you can see it waits before fading in the next component. And there you go. So you can see that works really nicely. And this is working with names. So if we was to change this name up here, let's just delete this name real quick and refresh. You can see it's not working. And that's because this name is linked to our tags. Let's just click this. You see this main class. If we click about, oh sorry, we need to change this back to a named one to actually show it, because it needs this. So here we go. You can see this main class. If we change, you can see the classes being applied now, and this is because it's actually adding in the classes that we need, and then it'll fade them straight off. So when we don't have a timer, so you can see here it's got 0.5, that's how long it takes. Let's change this to 0.3, and there you go. You can see it'll be now 0.6 seconds for the total, because it'll fade in the home and out the about, just like that. So now we've got that. So now we know how the actual transitions work, how we can use them. What we want to do is actually start adding more transitions. So we could add slide, and what we could do, we could go in here and we could just say slide like this and then create a slide one, but I want to add in something a bit more fun, and we're going to add something called a check. So I'm just going to go here and give this class of check, and this is going to have a label in it, and in the label we're going to have an input of type radio. That's going to have a name of anim, just so it knows it's all the animation. And then we're going to give it a value. Now the value is going to be fade for this one. We're then going to say the fee model, however, is going to be anim, and we'll get back to that in a moment. We then want to say fade just underneath it. We can actually bring it up to be on the side of this there. And then we want to duplicate this a few times. So this second one, I want it to be slide, and this is where we're going to say slide. We can then change this other one to be slide down. Oh. And we can say here slide down. And finally, the last one, we can say grow in, and we'll say grow in. And so I said that was the last one, but we have one more, which is to grow out as well. So we're going to say grow out, and finally grow out. Now we go back to our thing here. You can see we have these different buttons here. Let's just quickly style this up to put them in the center. So just under nav and above main, we'll just say .check display flex items center, and then justify content center. And that should bring them into the middle. We could also say check label and say margin 0.5 rem. And that should give them some space. There you go. That looks a lot better. And now you can see here we have these, but they don't do anything yet. So what we want to do is we want to go to our, up the top here in our script setup, and we want to import reference from Vue, because we're going to be using the reference here. We'll say const, and we're going to say anim is equal to ref, and we're just going to give it fade, which is going to be the default value, which is down here. And then we want to take anim, and we want to go to our name, and we just want to pass through anim, because now it's going to change our name to be whatever we call it. So if we go back and we refresh and we go, you can see the fade animation happens. Now if we change the slide, you can see nothing happens, it just jumps, and that's because what we're doing is we don't actually have a slide animation right now. So how do we do the slide animation? Now let me show you. It's really simple. We're going to copy these two. We're going to change all of these to be slide. And we're going to keep opacity because we want it still to have some opacity. But we also want to say transform, translate from -100%. Now you can do this from 100% or you can do it from a few hundred pixels. It's up to you. We'll start off with 100 and we'll see what happens. And then in here we also want to take this, and I'm just going to leave this at all. So we're going to say transition 0.3 ease out for both of these. So let's now go back here, refresh, click slide, and you can see they slide in and out. So you get this sliding in and out animation. And there you go, that's pretty simple. Let's try the next one. So all we have to do is copy this, go here, and then we just want to say slide down, enter. And this, we're just going to change to be Y. We're going to remove that, and we'll just say 300 pixels. So now if we go slide down, you can see it slides down and comes back up. We now have slide and fade. So let's do grow in. Again, you can see how easy this is to add your own custom animations. So let's just copy this, say grow in. And now this one, we're just going to change to be scale, and we'll set it to 0.2, maybe 0.3 to default. So this is where we're going to end up the end. So let's grow in, and you can see it grows down and grows back in. And there you go. So that's that. Now let's finally do grow out, which is pretty simple. It's just changing the literally one value. So out, and then we're just going to change this one value to be, let's say 1.5. You can change this to fit what your website needs. So let's do grow out, and there you go. It comes in and out. And that is how easy Vue transitions are. You can add even more complex animations in this by just changing it up, adding in different things. You can add in multiple different elements and change them all as well. And there you go. So you can see all of these just work. You can actually add in animations and keyframes as well if you wanted to. You have to work around how this comes in and out. But it's pretty awesome, as you can see here. So there's so many different ones here. So we have, let's go back through them. We've got the fade, just simple opacity in and out. We've got the slide, which is the opacity and the translate on the X. Slide down, which is the same, but on the Y. Grow in, which shrinks and then grows it back up. And then grow out, which means it expands and comes back in. And there you go. So you can see the different types of transitions you could do on your website using Vue 3 with the Vue router module built in. So guys, I hope you've learned something new in this tutorial about Vue Router and how you can do all these transitions and animations. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to leave a thumbs up. If you're new around here, do not forget to subscribe. We'll make videos like this all the time, and the fact you've got to the end means I've done something all right at least, which is good news. If you have any questions or you get stuck, then just drop a comment down below. If you do get really stuck and you need to share some code, then jump in our Discord. The link is down below. Ask for some help in our help channels, and someone should be able to help you there. If I'm around, I will try and help you if I can. But thank you guys for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace out.